The Vrexian guards had made their first mistake when they assumed Captain Sarah Chen would break easily. Their second mistake was underestimating what she had already become to the younger generation aboard their conquest vessel. The detention cell was standard issue. Reinforced durasteel walls, energy dampeners to prevent any technological escape, and a single force field humming at the entrance. Sarah sat in the corner, her uniform torn and bloodied from the interrogation, but her eyes remained defiant. The Vrexian Empire didn't tolerate resistance, especially not from species they deemed inferior. Humanity's recent entry into the galactic stage had been met with contempt, and Sarah's ship had been one of dozens captured during the initial invasion of the outer colonies. But the Vrexians hadn't counted on who else was listening. In the ventilation shaft 3 levels above, 12 pairs of eyes gleamed in the darkness. They were cubs, offspring of the Vrexian warriors, none older than 7 standard cycles. By all accounts, they should have been in the juvenile quarters, learning the ways of conquest and domination that had built their empire across 400 worlds. Instead, they were staging a rescue. Krill, the eldest at 7 cycles, pressed his muzzle against the grate. His chitinous scales scraped softly against the metal as he assessed the drop. Behind him, his clutchmates waited with a patience that would have shocked their parents. Vrexian young were notorious for their aggression and impulsiveness. Yet here they were, coordinated and focused, following a plan. The human taught us patience, Krill whispered in broken standard, the language Sarah had been teaching them in secret for the past 3 months. We use it now. It had started innocuously enough. Sarah's ship had been transporting medical supplies when the Vrexians attacked. As a prisoner with medical training, she'd been assigned to the juvenile ward when an outbreak of scale rot had threatened the young. While the adult Vrexians saw her as little more than a clever animal, the cubs had seen something different. She had stayed up for 42 hours straight during the outbreak, treating each cub with gentle hands and soft words. She sang them songs from Earth when they cried in pain. She told them stories of human heroes who protected the weak. And most importantly, she had asked them questions, what they thought, what they felt, what they dreamed about. No Vrexian adult had ever asked them such things. The cubs began to slip away from their training sessions to visit the medical bay. Sarah taught them more than just language. She taught them about cooperation instead of domination, about protecting instead of conquering, about choosing strength through compassion rather than fear. Their parents called it contamination. The High Command called it psychological warfare. They separated Sarah from the cubs and threw her into detention, scheduled for execution at dawn. That was 8 hours ago. Krill's claws found purchase on the grate, and with a careful twist he dislodged it. The metal fell, but Senna, smallest of the group, was already in position below, catching it with her tail before it could clatter and alert the guards. They had practiced this maneuver 17 times in the empty cargo holds. One by one, the cubs descended. Their claws, designed for rending armor and flesh in glorious combat, now worked with surgical precision. They moved through the shadows like whispers, avoiding guard rotations they had memorized through weeks of observation. When they reached Sarah's cell, they found the guard station empty, rotation change exactly as they'd calculated. But the cell itself presented a problem. The force field required a command code, and the manual override was encased in hardened plasteel. Krill looked at his siblings. They looked back at him. Then without a word, they began to dig. Vrexian claws could tear through ship hulls given enough time. The plasteel casing was tough, but not impossible. They worked in shifts 2 at a time, claws screeching against metal. The noise was inevitable, but they had planned for this too. Venna and Torque had positioned themselves at the corridor intersections, ready to alert the group of approaching guards. Inside the cell, Sarah heard the scratching. She stood, moved to the wall, and pressed her hand against it. On the other side, small claws touched the same spot. "I told you to stay safe," she whispered. "You taught us loyalty." Krill's voice came through, muffled but determined. "You taught us honor. These words not mean abandon." Tears streaked down Sarah's face as she listened to them work. 20 minutes passed, 30. The casing cracked. Small hands reached through, pressing buttons they'd watched guards use 100 times. The force field dropped. Sarah stumbled out and immediately knelt before the cubs. They surrounded her, checking her wounds with worried chirps and clicks. She pulled them close, feeling their small hearts racing. "We have to go," she said. "Now." "No," Krill said firmly. He stood at attention, and the other cubs did the same, forming a protective circle around her. You taught us hierarchy. You taught us chain of command. His eyes, golden and fierce, met hers with absolute certainty. You are Alpha, we are Pack. We wait for orders. Sarah looked at these children, these young warriors who had chosen compassion over conditioning, who had risked everything because she had shown them kindness. In their eyes, she saw not the future of the Vrexian Empire, but perhaps its salvation. Behind them, alarm klaxons began to wail. The guards had discovered the breach. Sarah Chen stood, wincing at her injuries, and placed a hand on Krill's shoulder. Around her, 12 young Vrexians stood ready, claws extended, teeth bared, waiting for her command. Then here's your order, she said, her voice steady despite the approaching footsteps. We survive. We protect each other, and we show them that strength isn't about conquest, it's about what you're willing to fight for. Krill's mandibles clicked in what Sarah had learned was a smile. Yes, Alpha. As the first guards rounded the corner, they found something that would be discussed in Vrexian military academies for generations to come. A human standing tall, surrounded by cubs who had chosen her, ready to face an empire. And in that moment, the Vrexians learned that humanity's most dangerous weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their ability to inspire loyalty in even the fiercest of hearts.